Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Gray here. Welcome back to another video. And in today's video, I want to talk about something that is important to me as not just a finance bro, because I'm not really that. I'm not really into the day trading or the options or the futures or crypto or all those kind of flashy finance bro stuff. But what I am into is you building a bigger, better tomorrow. And so for me personally, because of my age, I am in a interesting bracket of people where 18 to 25-year-olds have this opportunity where we can actually build a better future than what possibly our parents had, which is pretty interesting. And so there was a study done recently by Vanguard, who is one of the biggest brokerages and holders of equity in different companies in the world. And so they did a study on the overall average 401k balance and the median 401k balance spread out over by age. And there's a few caveats here. One is if you're younger, you probably have not gotten a job that offers a 401k match, but more as well, you probably haven't opened your first 401k. So if you're 18 watching this, the order of operations, just to quickly throw it out there, the order that most people recommend is your employer match, and then you go to Roth IRA, and then you go to 401k contributions. Typically, there's a little more things to make it a little more complicated depending on your situation. Some people say HSA, some people say other things. And I know these can be very high-level terms, but I wanted to talk about the Vanguard's 2024 study on the 401k balance by age because I want you to know, as a financial person, as somebody who's young and into money, I want you to know if you're actually ahead, if you're making good timing, if you're on track for this. So for me, I love watching these videos because for the most part, I can look at them and know, am I setting enough aside for the future? I don't need to be the high end, of hundreds of thousands by 30. I don't feel the need to do that. But what I do feel the need is to know that I'm on track. And so a basic rule of thumb before we go into this is by 30, you should have 1 times your income saved at whatever your income is at. And so let's say you make $50,000 a year. By the time you're 30, you should have $50,000 in retirement savings. And that's fairly doable. You max out your Roth IRA a couple times. You have a 401k contribution. It grows over that time. It can build up. And so you should be able to hit that $50,000 mark by 30 if that's your income. If you're trying to go for 100,000, you're gonna need some more contributions. You're gonna need to raise your kind of stuff. But besides the point, let's go ahead and jump into this real quick because I've been rambling on for 3 minutes. But let's go ahead and hop in. So the average 401k balance is up from 19% from last year, and it's $134,128. Now the average is difficult to look at because the average itself it can have the really low people, the people that have absolutely zero, which is actually going to be a bigger percentage of people than you think. And then it's also going to take up the extremely ultra high net worth individuals of people who, have millions and millions and millions of dollars in the 401k because they've been maxing it out for their entire lifetime. Because this is the average 401k balance across the board. And so you're going to have those 65-year-olds, 70-year-olds that have extremely high balances that are going to skew the average. So then we look at the median. The median 401k balance is much lower than the average and shows most savers have less. And so let's go through that by age. And so I love starting with the under 25 because that's the bracket that I fall in, and that's probably the bracket that you fall in. If it's not, I'm going to mention your bracket here in a minute. But if you're under 25, the average 401k balance is $7,351. So not insane. It's something. It's a start. It could turn into a lot of money. It's a start. But again, that's the average. Let's look at the median, which is much less, $2,816. And so my takeaway for that is see if you can get to 10. So for me personally, that's my goal. Is by the time that I turn 25, I want at least 10K in my 401k, assuming I've actually stayed with jobs long enough that offer 401k benefits. Recently, I'm very blessed in my position to have a lot of employee benefits and a lot of employer match, which means if I stay here about a year, I should be getting really close to that 10K. And so the more you can set yourself up here in the under 25 category, the more you can set yourself up, the more your money is going to have the opportunity to grow, and the less you're going to have to make up for this kind of stuff later on. And so if you're really young, if you just turned 18 or 19 or 20, take advantage of this time. Retirement is your time to build wealth. using these retirement accounts. That is the most beautiful thing I think I can say, is take advantage of the abundance of time that you have. And so then it brings us to ages 25 to 34, where the average is 37,557. And so that's a big jump. But as I said, you want at least 1 times your income in retirement savings by 30. And that means that probably that'll mean you'll have about 30K ish saved in a 401k account by the time you turn 30. That's probably not you. That probably is not the income you're making, just based off of pure statistics. And so then we look at the median, which is under half, is 14,933. Absolutely cut that down. And so then we want to consider, how can we be building this up? 25 to 34 is still a great time. If you're between those ages, this is still a great time. The best time was when you turned 18. The second best time is going to be right now. And that's going to be your opportunity where you can still have millions of dollars in retirement on a modest income. And so then we go to ages 35 through 44. The average is $91,281, and the median is $35,537. So this puts us in a funky spot of in that messy middle of having, you could have kids, you could be married, you could not be, you could be traveling, you could have been through 10 jobs, you could have been through 2. We don't really know what all that looks like. But what we can know is the fact that you're still not at 6 figures, which can be difficult to start to watch that grow, especially if you're on that 44-year-old end. And so by 40 years old, we want to be having over 6 figures. We want to be long past that 6-figure mark if possible. But ideally, if you're coming up on your 40s, let's push for that 6-figure mark. And for me personally, that's my goal, is to have 7 figures by 40. And that's going to take a lot of work, both in the market and outside of taking some risks. But we'll see how that plays out. But then that brings us to the next one, ages 45 through 54. Average is 168,646. The median is a measly 60,763. So we crossed that 6-figure mark, which is definitely something to be celebrated. But as I said, we're getting to retirement age. So if you're thinking about an early retirement, in your 50s or 55, you can't retire off of $100,000 in your 401k. And so we need to kind of be considering, there's not going to be a great big grand retirement at 50 if that's when you're starting with $168,000 in your 401k. At this point, you need to readjust those expectations. You need to readjust the fact that you've still got, about 5 to 10 years left to really push through. Maybe longer if you're healthy, but in terms of life quality, you got about 5 or 10 years. And so you need to be chucking away as much as possible to at least build that up, so that we're not having to work into our 60s and our 70s. And so that then brings us to ages 55 through 64. And the average is 244,750, almost $250,000, but the median is 87,571. And so for the median, we still have not hit 6 figures. And sadly, out of this entire list, the median never crosses 6 figures, which can be pretty difficult. And so I believe that there is a coming epidemic of people that are not able to retire because they didn't take care of what they needed to take care of. I believe that part of being an adult, and if you're a parent, part of being a parent, is setting enough money aside for tomorrow. And while we can sit here and we can be victims of the circumstance that we're in, and we can say, we can't handle it, we can't do it because there's not enough money, or life's too expensive, or all these different things. While that might be true, it's your responsibility to put away money for tomorrow. Whether that's $50 or $500 or $5,000, it's your responsibility to set yourself up for success in the coming days. And so I love to watch a show called Financial Audit. If you haven't checked it out, I'll link the main channel down below. He's much bigger than I am. He's got 2 million plus subscribers, thousands of episodes, billions of views at this point. But I love watching this show. But one of the saddest things that I see on that show, as somebody who's really into this finance thing, is watching people that are older. About a year ago, he had a handful of older people on the show, and they were thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt in their 50s and 60s. And sadly, that's going to be the reality for a lot of people. both now and in the next couple years and in the next couple decades. That's sadly going to be a problem we have because people our age are not setting aside enough money for the future. And so if I can encourage you to be the extreme, the outlier, the weird person, that crazy finance guy, it doesn't, you don't have to be like me. It doesn't have to be all you talk about. But what you can do is you can set yourself up for success so that you don't end up 65 plus with an average 401k balance of 272,588. Finally crossed that $250,000 mark, but as well that median of 88,488, just barely higher than the 55 to 64. And so in that particular time, it's difficult because after 65, that's when most people will start to take out of their 401k. So that median is probably the highest it will ever get. And so that can be difficult. That can be really, really difficult. And so some trends and things that I'll probably talk about going forward on this channel are going to be the auto enrollment things that are coming out in different states. I believe right now 13 states have auto enrollment and 7 more are adding it. I don't think Texas is one, which is where I live, but we'll see how that goes. And then another thing is target date funds. So they're now widely used. 66% of people in 2023 use target date funds as opposed to 7% in the early 2000s. And so that's kind of a trend where, we need to be looking at it's working. A target date fund, all that is it will automatically adjust your investments the older that you get, the closer you get to retirement age, so that it makes sense with your situation. You don't want to be 40 or 50 or 60 taking super risky investments like you can be doing when you're 20 years old. And then as well, younger workers need to be in investments. We need to have a strategy. It can change over time. It will change over time. But specifically, we want to focus on actually building a better tomorrow. And that doesn't start by maxing out our credit cards or going into massive amounts of student loan or buying cars we can't afford. That starts with putting money aside for tomorrow and watching it grow. A super fun thing that I like to do is I like to bully my friends into investing. And I don't tell them necessarily what to buy. I encourage them that you should understand what you're doing, and you shouldn't invest unless you understand what it's doing. But I kind of encourage them that the same way that they encourage me to lift heavy things and eat right, I want to encourage them to build a better future for tomorrow so that I don't have to carry them in retirement, but more importantly, they get the dignity of carrying themselves. And so, some takeaways. Let's start saving early and consistently. I love saying always be buying. Buy as much as you can, as often as you can. Don't try to time the market. Let's just focus on whenever you get paid, or once a week, or I buy every day. Focus on buying consistently in consistent amounts and starting right now. You can open a taxable brokerage or a Roth IRA today, and you can get it set up. And there's plenty of videos like that on YouTube. I might end up making one here one of these days. But absolutely, go ahead and get your retirement set up. And don't rely on the averages. Focus on your personal goal and stick to it. Have a why and a mission in what you're doing. For me, I'm having a daughter and I have a wife. For me, that's my why. I want to build a better tomorrow for them. I want to be able to spend time with them. I want to be able to go on trips with them. I want to be able to have a life where I can be home more and I don't have to be working 50 to 75 hours a week. I can actually be here with them. And there's no, phone calls or people pulling me away. I can sit. If we want to spend a whole day playing Monopoly, we can do that. And then also use the tools available. Auto increase features, target date funds, employer matches, whatever tools you have, use them. We have this beautiful thing called YouTube, called the internet, called ChatGPT. So put your stuff in there, ask questions. And if you don't know what questions to ask, you can ask that question. You can ask ChatGPT, what do I need to ask? What do I need to ask when it comes to retirement or target date funds? What are the things I need to know? And we are in the age of information where you can build a better tomorrow easier than ever. And so to close the retirement gap, wow, I messed that up. To close the retirement gap, save more if you can, delay retirement, and reduce investment fees. And I'll make videos on that going on here a little bit later. But that's all I wanted to talk about in today's video. If you guys want to check out the study, I'll drop it down in the description down below, and I'll see you on the next one. Adios.